nervous because I'm here now.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm Glenn Martin here with my co-host James Haskell and a friend and familiar face of the show, Tony Thornton, who also happens to double as the news and weather guy for 92Q, which is important to this video because we're going to discuss the possible inclement weather being talked about in Buffalo this weekend for the division matchup between the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens, and discuss the impact that weather could have on the game. But before we get started, if you could take a quick second, hit the subscribe button so you get the most up-to-date news on your beloved Ravens. But Tony, without further ado, if you could give us, what is the expected weather looking like Buffalo evening?
Well, let's talk about the weather in Buffalo for Saturday afternoon. They do expect a snow squall with some accumulations, about an inch. That's what they expect in the afternoon. And then by game time, which will be, of course, at 8:30, I believe, NBC, in Orchard Park, 29 degrees, cloudy. They're saying cloudy conditions, so the snow might be gone. If it's anything is coming down, it will be either on the field or it'll be at least cleared off. They say they're not showing any type of of snow at game time, but before the game in the afternoon, a little bit of snow. So really not that much of a factor as I thought it was going to be. Again, this is now Wednesday, so that could change, and we'll certainly keep everybody posted on that. Probably by Friday, we'll see where we are there. But right now, it looks to me a little snow in the afternoon and no snow at night.
Yeah. So, and so Tony, what you're telling me is that, according to the coverage on the news, there's going to be a blizzard, but it doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, well, that's what everybody's thinking. I think everybody's, what if it snows in Buffalo? Can they handle the snow? I mean, yeah, I think that it will be enough where you would need to pack your extra cleats, and hopefully Lamar will have those additional cleats that he can change, because we've seen Lamar struggle at times with cleats, and so hopefully they'll bring an extra bag just for him and the other running backs as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, when you got a Lamborghini, you need to have good tires, or else that Lamborghini is rendered useless, right?
Right, exactly.
So Glenn, what do you think happens in this game if there is some snow there? Who has the advantage? How do you see that going?
Man, that can be it's interesting. I think you could argue in multiple different directions. I mean, you start with the quarterbacks and you look at Josh Allen and Lamar. Both were born and raised in obviously warm temperatures. Lamar being a Florida guy and Josh Allen being from California. But after that, I mean, when you hear Josh Allen went to Wyoming, is there a colder place to play college football?
The average yearly temperature in Laramie, Wyoming is 40 degrees.
So
yearly.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, it's not warm in Louisville in football season either. I think the average temperature there is somewhere in the 30s in football season.
Right.
So, but it's another type of cold. I believe it averages on average about 15 degrees cooler in Wyoming in the fall than it does in Louisville. So I guess the edge in that case would go to Josh Allen. And of course, Lamar admitting he's never played in a snow game. So you'd have to think just from a preparation standpoint, I guess one's been through it. So you give the edge there. And then I look at the teams and I say, well, who benefits more from a pass rush standpoint? And to me, I feel like the Ravens need to lean on a pass rush more than the Bills do. I don't want to see Josh Allen sitting in that pocket and watching Stephon Diggs and John Brown and Cole Beasley and the other guys I mentioned in the previous video. I don't want to watch them running all over the field and catching long plays. So I think pass rush is certainly an area of concern when it comes to loose footing and snow being on the ground, because if you need to get off the ball quick and then lean on a 300-pounder, you need some good footing to be able to do so. And I think that could really limit the pass rush. So I got to give the edge there as well. And then I look at, I mentioned through the air, Diggs and all, it's a lot easier to run where when you know where you're going. And so chasing a guy, especially for an extended period of time, can be quite difficult. Even though we have great corners, I'm worried about that. Now on the other side of the ball, as far as, man, it's going to, if the offensive line are able to lean and impose their will and start moving that line of scrimmage, then it opens up lanes for the rush attack. So I think it could lead to, so basically what I'm saying is I think it leads to a high scoring game. I think it leads to high scoring on both sides. I think it benefits the offense on the Ravens as well as the offense for the Bills. So if anything, I might have to take the over if I'm a gambling man, but yeah, I don't know how which team it benefits more. I just see it benefiting both teams' offenses. What do you guys think?
What do you think, Tony?
Well, I would say, in looking at games with inclement weather, especially with rain, I know rain is different than snow per se, but you really have to make sure you handle the ball, whether it's snapping, whether it's the center, whether it's Lamar taking the snap, whether it is getting your footing off the defensive side, rushing that pass. So you got to get your footing. You got to be able to take off like a track star to kind of get to that backfield. And even with the quarterbacks, you got to be able to move around just a bit. I don't necessarily think it will be too much of a factor. I think the advantage would probably go to the offensive side of the ball. I still think that both teams will be able to try to make attempts to run the football, especially the Ravens. I don't think that will be an issue as long as the cleats are right, and certainly we see those kind of things happening. I think on the defensive side, I think the first quarter or so, they're going to try to fill each other out. If I don't necessarily feel there's going to be a lot of snow issues. So I just think it's going to be very cold. I think you're going to see a lot of sleeveless guys because everybody thinks that's the cool thing to do. Nobody gets cold when it's cold. I think that if Lamar can just adjust his footing, I think they'll be fine on the offense side. It's really tough to say, to your point, Glenn, where the advantage is. I'm more concerned about turnovers, just messy play when the ball gets too wet or gets too slippery. That could cause issues if whether it's McCary or whether it's Skura, making sure that the ball is snapped properly in the shotgun. Lamar gets his hands on the ball. Those are kind of things that I'll be looking for in this game. But I don't really see it as an advantage either way. Both teams have to play in it. I don't know if Josh Allen is better in the snow than Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar Jackson just wants to play football. And so I don't think it's going to be as bad as I think people would like for it to be, because it's Buffalo in January. So that might be good news to see that it's not necessarily going to be snowing all day or all night. So we'll kind of see what happens, but I don't really see it as an advantage as long as I think that the turnover factor is the big key here.
All right, so you guys are going to count on me and make me be the resident homer again. And I'm going to be. Look, this is total advantage to the Ravens. I don't care about Josh Allen's time in Wyoming and the 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts and the snow drifts. I've been through it. It's not fun. But I'm gonna tell you guys a little story here. We're going to have story time. So in the prime of my athletic career, I was playing on a select soccer team, and we were really good. We had this old school Italian coach. It was a spring league, but he made us start training in January. And he used to cone out a section of the field, and he would say, you guys are going to do drills in this section until the ground thaws. All right, great, because the ground is frozen. But what happens when the ground thaws? It gets muddy. It gets nasty. You can't grip anything. And if I'm not mistaken, the average size of our offensive lineman is 6'5", 330, something like that.
About that, yeah.
So that ground is going to start thawing. Those guys are going to start leaning on those defensive linemen. We're going to come downhill with a guy like Gus, downhill with a guy like JK. These guys are going to be slipping all over the field. I cannot wait. It's going to be muddy. It's going to be nasty. I'm super excited for it. And we're just going to be hitting them in the face. And then on top of that, you compound it with the cold. Guess who's going to be sitting on the sideline? Now, Josh Allen might not be affected by the cold, but Diggs is going to be over on the sideline getting cozy in his big old cape. All these other guys for 8-minute drives with 7. He's like, right, I got to go out there on the field. So I say total advantage Ravens all the way. And in fact, Glenn, I think you had a really awesome stat earlier about Lamar's playing in the cold.
I do. And now I did see another one that kind of looked very similar from Josh Allen's point of view. And I don't have that right in front of me right now. I only have the Lamar stat, but Lamar Jackson is 8-1 in games in which they're played at 40 degrees or lower in his career. And the team is averaging 32 points per game in those wins or in those games. So, I mean, those are pretty darn good. Now, I think I saw that Josh Allen in that same scenario, 40 degrees or below, only has one loss as well in his career. I think he's 7-1 or something close to that. So they both played very well. But I think Tony brings up a very good point here, and it's one I want to kind of expand on, the turnover factor. If the ball is wet, even if it's not a bunch of snow on the ground, even if it's just like you mentioned, Jimmy, if it thaws and there's just moisture on the ball, it does make me a little more concerned because of the Ravens' use of the option play, the plays where he sticks the ball in Gus's stomach and goes to pull it out. And that's where we've seen some issues in that mesh point with balls squirting out. I mean, he's definitely cleaned it up, obviously, over the years. But it's not something. It's something that just makes me more concerned because they have the more likelihood of using more of those plays So Tony, does that concern, is that mainly where your concern lies? Is that mesh point and all that stuff?
Yeah, the mesh point, the snap, the mesh points, those are the things that I'll be looking at to making sure that they can at least grip the ball, because that to me is more of a factor. I think the footing wise, I think the equipment folks are going to be smart enough to make sure the cleats are are where they need to be. They'll go out before the game and walk around and get a sense of where what's going on with that. I think just the ball itself and making sure that Lamar takes care of that football. If he makes that quick decision to pull the ball out of, let's say, Dobbins' hands or Edwards' hands quickly, make sure you keep that grip on that ball. Now, I know that earlier, I think last week, he had a thumb issue. He mentioned it during the press conference that he jammed his thumb a little bit. And today I saw that he was wearing his glove at practice on that hand. So, and that's something he normally doesn't do. So I don't think it's bothering him, but that is one of the things I'll be looking for. Just make sure you hang on to the football, you grip the football. And so those are kind of things that I'm more concerned about, to your point, Glenn, with that mesh point and also with hanging on to that wet ball.
All right, now you got me, guys. Now you guys got me a little concerned, because the first thing, of course, you lose when it's cold out is your dexterity, right?
Yes.
And you ever tried to text outside when your fingers are frozen? It's impossible.
Well, the good news on the sideline, they have all of those coats and gloves and jackets and warmers and the helmet warmers. So maybe they can get over there real quick and get a quick warm. But I think to your point, Glenn, this team does pretty well when it comes to cold weather. I don't think Lamar. Yeah. I think Lamar just, again, he loves to play football. Just let me play and I'll do what I can do. But I don't think the team will be like, oh my God, it's so cold out here. It's going to be cold, yeah, of course. But I think I think that the defensive linemen are going to come out there with no sleeves, and they're going to pump the rest of the skill guys up enough. I think they can get through it with no problem.
Tony, you were at the Jets game last year, right?
Last year, yes, I was at the Jets game.
It was like 17 degrees.
It was ridiculous.
So cold.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Now, luckily, I left in the third quarter because the game at that point was over.
Yeah, it was out of hand.
But the coldest game was, of course, that game that crazy playoff game against the Bengals at home when it was 8 degrees. 8 degrees, and I was out there for that debacle.
So I don't think
that's the coldest game I've ever been to.
I don't think they're giving Baltimore enough credit. We know what it's like to play in the cold. This is the AFC North we're talking about.
Baltimore has cold weather games in December and November. So
we don't get trips down to Miami once a year. Like, what is
if it was the Dolphins playing, I get it. But no,
that's true.
I think the Ravens can handle the cold weather.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you guys this really quickly, and we'll end with this. Is it being overblown, just overall, the impact of the weather? Is it being overblown?
I mean, it sounds like it from what Tony's saying. It's every news station I turn on, that's the new narrative is, can Lamar now win a game that's going to have snow, because he's never done that. So that's
he's never done that either. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Now what I'm hearing, he might not have to do that this weekend. It doesn't sound like, even if the snow does fall, it's not going to be enough to accumulate. Is that is that right?
I mean, from what I've seen on the from a weather forecast perspective early on, but again, those things change. But it appears right now at night, when the game is being played at night, the snow will already have fallen. That doesn't mean the ground's not going to be wet and slippery, because it still will be, because it's still going to be below freezing. So that's still the critical issue, but it's not going to, I don't, according to what I see, there's no blizzard coming, and there's no huge snowfall coming.
It's not like Green Bay, with the Titans going in there a couple weeks ago.
We're not going to turn the TV on. It's all white. Like, oh my God, what's going on? It's not going to be that. Now, again, that could change by Friday, who knows? But right now it looks to be, decent conditions, not the most ideal, but I'm not worried about that, especially with our ground and pound type of situation that we can come up with. So there's no worries.
Nice. Well, you guys let us know what you think. Is the weather thing overblown? Does one team have an advantage over the other? And if so, who? We've given you our opinions. We'd like to know yours. Leave them down in the comment section, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
See you.